Testing now. There it is. Sounding good? Okay.
Okay.
Jim, do you have any duct tape in the truck?
No judgment if you don't. I'm not thinking anything about it.
I can go get some.
And you won't be back in time for me to get this done.
I have electrical tape, would that work?
Can it go,
Oh.
this cord to the floor?
It's otter. The keyword is otter.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
We're looking for either some duct tape or
Just something like a mat.
or a run.
Yeah, just to set on
Tape
it.
to the cord to the floor or put a mat on it. I don't know if you have any mats. I don't know.
This for the time being, I can go check in
Probably
case.
won't stick because it's so thick. A mat would be ideal. We just don't want to be close to
Of course.
the coat rack back here. Is that good?
I still have.
You look so How you doing? Okay. Take a good care of your mom, right? I didn't answer.
Level, hey.
We're gonna need it. We're gonna need it. So, we had thought to have your dad and Patty and you and Jossie and Adam and Ola here with, Patty's girls and over behind the
Darling,
Hey,
Can you
is that
call
working?
Ian,
Are you
ask
okay?
him to check Eric's website and see if the link is working with the sound?
Call who?
Ian,
Ian. Okay, let me call him.
just say go to the ericmxavier.com and see if that link takes him to the live stream.
I don't have to fix my
I
face.
think,
Uh-oh. Hold on.
This is beautiful property.
And,
We saw him cruise down to the water, and Dad was like, I said, your brother's over there. He said, where? I'm like, the only man is standing over there. He's like, "It is."
for everybody watching on the live stream, we'll be starting in approximately 10 more minutes. So your computers are not broken, but we are going to push out the start for just a few more minutes. So thank you. The screen might go black a few times, and the mic is going to turn off. Thanks. have all this, okay, so the speakers. I think we're just gonna start. Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, so, I know Gary's coming with Nick and Brent and Linda, so we'll just start. Yeah, we'll start. We're all good. All right, so we're gonna just double check a little bit here with the sound. Totally informal. I never went to school for this stuff. So, let me just make sure. Just give it a second for the sound. Mark, is there, looks like there's sound? Yeah. Okay. Let's begin. Nothing formal. All right. Okay, this is my first shot. Thank you all for driving down, flying in, coming over. This day is a profoundly sad one. Though even in this time of grief, I cannot help but reflect on the many wonderful experiences that I, and I'm certain the rest of you, have shared with Eric. In navigating this tremendous loss, it's important for us to remember just how much richer our lives have been because of Eric. Knowing him, laughing with him, just having him near to be part of our story as well. This is why we've all come to this special place. We're here to remember from both near and far, and on the internet. We've come to seek comfort in family and friends, and perhaps begin the healing process by honoring Eric today. So today we're going to share some stories. We'll cry, we'll laugh. We may learn something about Eric that we didn't know, but most importantly, I'm sure we will feel an immense amount of love and support. Before I get into my extremely long-winded eulogy, and I'm telling you folks right now, it is long. I would like to have my sisters come up and speak to you, and we're going to start today with Kristen. She's going to speak to you, a letter she wrote to Eric. So, Kristen?
I'm gonna try.
Do I need to make introductions as Kristen? Everybody knows Kristen. Okay.
Okay, well that was good. That makes it a little better. I'm gonna try. I might not be able to do this. I am a mess. Whew. I forgot my tissues. How do I write a quick note about the amazing human that was my brother? Get it together. I think I wrote this probably 1 million times in my head in the middle of the night. But I couldn't get the right words. As all of you know, Eric was a gentle soul from the beginning, always ensuring that I was taken care of especially. The first memory here in Ovid was, looking back now, it's probably funny, but the night that he ate cat food so that I had food. Because there wasn't enough food in the house for the three of us. And at the young age of 7, to already be like that is just, it speaks of the person that Eric is, and I know that that's probably not the best example, but that's the first one that I have. And before we were fortunate enough to be in the care of our dad, life was not okay. And most people would carry that trauma forever and be different, but Eric did not. Eric was a protector. That's who he was, whether to me, Adam, Dad, anyone that he deemed family. But not even, I'm sure, that his love probably extended to anybody that he met, even on the side of the street. The last time that the 4 of us were all together was when I was promoted to chief, which is why I'm in my uniform today, in 2018. And until then, I didn't really realize the amount of pride that he actually had in what I chose to do with my life and in my career. I wear this uniform today for him. every time that I would see Eric after that, he would always tell me at least one fun fact about the Navy, and a lot of times I didn't even know it, and I'm in the Navy. And so the history that he gave to me showed me that he actually valued the path that I took, which surprised me because I was always so proud of him and Adam, and I really wish that the level of genius that he had was something that I possessed, and I just never felt like I did. And as Jocelyn told us, he's probably very lucky right now to be surrounded by amazing people like Albert Einstein, because that's the type of people that he would love to sit around and probably drink whiskey with. I was raised by 3 extraordinary men. I'm sorry, I'm trying. I often would tell people that that's why I'm a little rougher on the edges and not very girly, because I was raised by wolves, right? And that was always just something that I was thankful for, because they made me have a toughness that I probably never would have had. I'm not going to sit up here and do 12 pages like Adam, but I do want to end with this. Dad. I have no idea the amount of pain and sorrow that you must feel. But I need you to know that Eric loved you more than anyone on the whole entire planet. You were his person. He strived to be just like you. He bragged about you any chance that he could get. You did not fail him. You did not let him down. He was in pain, and now he's no longer suffering. He's probably up there now singing, laughing, maybe not singing, but laughing. And he's free of the pain that he had for so long. I too am sorry that I couldn't rescue him. And I'll miss him every single day, every second. But I'm a mess. In his words, onward and upward.
It's not going to get any easier. So next we're going to have Kate come up. Kate's going to read a little bit of something she wrote, and she's also going to read a poem that Patty wrote about Eric. Kate.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kate. For those I haven't met yet, for those who don't know me, I'm one of Eric's stepsisters. I met Eric 13 years ago when he and Adam were 27 and I was 20. My mom, my sister, and my sister Carly, were driving up to see Chief and pick up Eric along the way. We were all going to go to their friend Tony's house for a barbecue. And I remember pulling up to Eric's house. I was so nervous. I knew how much in love my mom and Chief were. And so I thought to myself, you know, if I'm really good, if we're really cool, they could be my brothers. And Eric could be my brother one day. And I'd always wanted a brother. I always wanted older siblings. And I was lucky enough to get 3. I thought to myself, oh, please like me. Please like us. And he got in the car, And I remember it like it was yesterday. He was wearing aviator sunglasses and a white button-down shirt with pink and purple stripes, and his hair was cut up like this. And he just immediately got in the car, and the door wasn't even shut yet, and he started talking. And he just had so much to say. And I thought to myself, phew, someone who talks more than I do. We're going to get along great. It's just going to be just fine. And I remember Eric's laugh. He had this great laugh. Like when he found something funny, it felt like it came all the way up from the center of his belly, and it just radiated throughout the whole room. So that you couldn't help but laugh just because Eric was laughing. And then he'd always end with this. He'd always be like, that's so good. And now I say that all the time. And we were in the car, and I listened to him talk about work and certain projects. And I just thought, God, he's so impressive. Eric? When Eric spoke, it was like pages of an encyclopedia were flowing off his tongue at lightning speed. Your mind couldn't even keep up. That was my impression from day one, and it never changed. And I always thought to myself, how can someone's mind work that quickly? How does someone's brain hold that much knowledge? It was incredible. It felt like no matter what topic I'd bring up, whether it was science or technology or history, Eric knew something about it. And as someone whose nose is in the news every day and who likes reading about science and politics and history and sharing a lot of nerdy fun facts, whether you've asked for them or not, the person I was always most excited to talk to about it was Eric. Because he had always had something to say back. And so when holidays came around, and I was told there was a chance Eric might be there, I got so excited because I just wanted to tell him what I had learned. Because with Eric, I felt like I could always be myself. I didn't have to be small or quiet or less smart. I could just be me, nerdy and me. And what more could you want from getting a brother than someone who makes you feel safe, whose mind and heart you admire, who you could laugh with and drink a lot with, and with whom you could just really be yourself. In June of this year, I got to spend a little over 2 weeks with Eric every day. I live in London now, and I was getting my visa renewed in the US, and there was a delay in processing because of the war in Ukraine. Visas for refugees in Ukraine were understandably priority over everyone else, so it was delayed, and so I was staying at my mom and chief's house, and I got to spend each of those days with Eric. And I remember each morning he'd be like, oh, I gotta leave, I gotta get to work today, and I'd say, no, please stay, and then he'd always stay. And then it was 15 days of him staying. And I learned that he was learning Ukrainian, and that he had made several donations to the war effort, and that one day he'd like to visit Kyiv. And at the time, I was so frustrated because without my passport or visa, I couldn't get back home. And I was stuck. But now, being stuck was the best thing that could have happened to me, because I got to spend that time with my brother Eric. And I'll be grateful for those days for the rest of my life. Thank you for being my brother Eric. I will miss you. And now I'd like to read a poem, that my mom wrote. A poem for our son. Some moments in a family have no consolable words. We think of you every day, yet we don't hear the birds. We reached for you so many times, yet your hands could not see that our hands were right beside yours, where they'd always want to be. To your brightness we cling, to bring light to our dark. Your blue sky touched so many. Your life's made quite a mark. We question every memory, wonder what we left unsaid, remembering the long road you traveled instead of its end. Your soul shines upon us, yet our hearts are now dim. Your absence unbearable as our grief grows within. We tried to understand your pain, your struggles ebb and flow, yet rather think of your entire life lived, not the moment you had to go. Your many preferred passions that we wish still burned bright, marvelous memories of you revisited long through the night. Like your language studies, haikus, and surprising funny texts, we need the joy of you alive now, for we know not what's next. We model your manners, your best qualities, and great style to stay closer to you and rest our tears for a while. Sock fancy kept your feet warm. It amused you, that brand. So many styles you left behind, I hold tight in my hand. Such colorful patterns you adorned on those grand feet, footsteps that brightened our day every time that we'd meet. You'd take stays deep inside yourself, despite countless friends you'd know, then come by for a chat, a Scrabble game, and a hug hello. We dined, we told stories, your foot perched past your knee, arms crossed as you leaned back to laugh at your favorite comedy. We marvel at your gift for invention, cherish your love of a good dad joke. Your creations keep helping bikers, first responders, and business folk. Whether spaghetti or sushi, bourbon or beer, you walked into all of our hearts. Clever humor we'd always hear. Your constant curiosity expanded what we know, while caring to leave a small footprint wherever you quietly go. We follow your work ethic and strive to be our best. We hope you have peace now, so you can finally rest. From donating bravely to saving lives with your own, we share the joy of loving you. Our road without you is still unknown. As we grieve the loss of Eric, we gather strength from knowing that his energy lives on. As we share this poem by a Roman poet named Ovid, who lived from 43 BC to 17 AD. All things change, yet nothing is extinguished. There is nothing in the whole world which is permanent. Everything flows onwards, and all things are brought into being with a changing nature. The ages themselves glide by in constant movement, for still waters will never reach the sea.
It's not wine, it's not vodka, straight water. All right. I spent a lot of time writing this eulogy. I'm just going to call it a speech, if you're all okay with that. But before I get into it, I do want to speak a little bit from the heart, put some of my emotions out, just because, you know, the eulogy can come off a little bit mechanical, but I'll explain why later. I lost my twin brother. The words don't make sense as they pass over my lips. I lost the other half of my identification. For as long as I've been on this earth, I'm pretty sure I've had this analog. Eric was my brother and my friend. He was also an emotional connection, my burden, all these things. In my darkest moments, because I've had them too, we've all had those, I've turned to Eric for comfort and support. See, Eric was a beacon of normalcy for me as I journeyed out into this insane reality to build my story. The odd thing here is I never truly roamed far away from him. Imagine a person next to you throughout your entire existence that looks like you, sounds like you, and I know he does, thinks like you, and generally sees the world and experiences things the way you do. He's a personification of my inner voice, a gift from the heavenly beings and the universe here to enhance my experience. It's truly remarkable to experience the life of being a twin. I lost my brother and my twin. My pain feels seemingly insurmountable right now at this moment, to be completely transparent with everybody. But the writing of this eulogy and its perfect execution has become something of a spiritual pilgrimage for me. My words are being supported by my brother if he's standing here next to me delivering what he would consider the speech of his life. It's about his life, and that is exactly what he would do for me. Eric would go to the ends of the earth to ensure that my name and legacy resonate with everybody whose lives I came into contact with. So hopefully, I'm able to achieve that today. All right, enough of the mushy stuff. We'll get this sorted out. All right. Presentations have been a part of my life and Eric's for years. Most of you probably know that. And I've prepared and presented many public speeches over the years for our first company with Eric standing right next to me. We would spend countless hours reciting statements and facts in an effort to memorize words, to be able to speak concisely without any visual aids. Reading directly off a sheet? Never. We would never do it. He wouldn't stand for it. Preparing for this was arguably the biggest challenge of my life and one I will not do again. So today, I'm going to read directly off this sheet against what Eric and I would normally do, and he's going to have to like it. As a matter of fact, a quick tangent here, because you're going to get a lot of these today. The Xaviers are storytellers. We like our stories. Here's a quick tangent for everybody. And you're going to get, to break it up, Dad was here. Eric and I were getting an award at our first company. We were being recognized by the United States Congress and the United States Senate for innovation in technology. And we had a room full of about 1,100 business professionals. You remember this? Anthony's Pier 9 in New York. There's nothing more gangster than that. And Eric and I were sitting at this big table, and we knew we had to go up and talk to people. And he kept nudging me. There's this big screen, big 20-foot screen projecting who's at the podium. He kept nudging me. He's like, Adam, we got this. Nothing to it. It's a piece of cake. Go up there, just breathe, get the butterflies out. And I'm like, okay, just chill, man. So as we get called up, we're walking up to the podium. He starts getting a little bit like this. You remember this? And we get up, and the camera's on us, and you can see our giant heads, not unlike this, on the screen, and he stood there, frozen. So I took the mic, and I just said our entire speech, the way we prepared it. And for the entire 3 or 4 minutes we addressed that room, he said nothing until we got to the very end, and he grabbed the mic and said, thank you. And if anybody wants to see a visual of this, someone put this picture on Facebook, and you can see him standing there doing that. I digress. So today, I'm just going to stick to this script here to ensure accurate and exact delivery. One last point to note, I'm only up here speaking this eulogy. I elbowed my way up to this podium for this because I know Eric would do the exact same thing for me. Like I said, he would pull everything together about me. He'd write stories. He'd construct a presentation, visual aids. He would manufacture handouts to give to everybody so you could follow along. That's how Eric was. And he would deliver the eulogy of my life. So I do feel compelled to do this for him, and I think I have no other choice. Eric wants his story told. He wants everyone to know what he stood for and what his name meant. No man wants to head out into the great beyond with unanswered questions on the minds of others, his family, his friends, people close to him. They want truth, and they don't like loose ends. So today we're going to go on a journey of who Eric was, what he worked so hard for his life to be, and the image he wanted to impress upon everybody. Now, again, I'm in a unique position to deliver these stories because most of you may know he's my twin. We're twins. We grew up together. That was a joke. The people out there may not know that. Actually, there may be some people that don't know that. Okay. See, to me, a sibling bond is strong, undoubtedly. A brother's bond is also strong, right? We know this. A twin's bond is strong, but in a different way. Sharing a bedroom, every single birthday, all of our toys, life's major milestones that you should really enjoy individually. Just about anything we can find special, sharing that with your identical twin brother creates a uniquely strong, complicated, but amazing bond, for better or for worse. Another anecdote. We also know not to mess around with people. When we were little boys, we were even in grade school, and we pretended to switch. There's another picture in the slideshow of Eric wearing my color red. And we pretended, and we learned very quickly, don't screw with people, because even though we didn't switch and we were pretending, nobody believed us after that. Anyway, said the antidotes are going to come strong and hard. So, the journey. How do you sum up a man's life in 20 minutes? In this case of Eric, I submit you cannot. Although his time here with us was relatively short, he did manage to book quite a list of remarkable achievements. Start out with the inventor. After college, Eric and I moved to the Hudson Valley to begin our collective journey into the world of the great untethered opportunity before us. It was not very long after that we had both taken steps into our various careers. I went into finance, Eric went into marketing. Although we were in different careers, we stumbled upon our aha moment together. We invented a product that we could build a company around, and that we did. We even brought Dad along for one hell of a ride. Admittedly, if this situation were to present itself again today for just one of us, it couldn't have been done. The energy that Eric and I created together was enough to propel our simple little idea into a fully funded business with branding that was being sold around the world in a very short order. Many of you may know that. Living under the same roof, we could be each other's support. One day I would be down and Eric would inevitably push me to see the big picture. Come along, man. This is our opportunity, our world. Let's do this, and vice versa. See, we were never out of sync. If I had a bad day, he had a good day. If he had a good day, I had a bad day. It was never. And if we both had a bad day, it was whiskey. Excuse me. We propelled each other to astronomical heights, and we did it for years. Many of our partners would quip, Adam brings the steak and Eric brings the sizzle. Remember that? This could not be a more distilled summation of our existence together at that time. I was the numbers guy building the plan, creating the financial structure to support production, distribution, and so on. But more importantly, Eric was the brains behind the marketing and branding. He brought marketability and consumer connection to our business, And that's important because from the moment we put our first consumer product out, it already had a fully realized perception of quality, solidity, and brand history that rivaled some of the biggest companies in the industry. To give this virtue meaning in the business world, Eric basically created a calling card that allowed us to open doors to some of the most iconic brands imaginable for even little boys. Ducati, Harley-Davidson, Aprilia. I could take meetings with the heaviest hitters because of our branding, and that was all Eric. There's no overstatement. Eric's immense drive to produce world-class output truly built the foundation of our early achievements together. The humanitarian. After we departed from our first company together, Eric headed south to get his hands on another project, as we do. It was during his time in Florida working on his new venture where he began to demonstrate his humanitarian side. That side was always there from the beginning, but it's different now. This sense of service to his fellow man, his invention of products to help people, safety products, security products, consumer-focused products, it was always there. He also gave away a lot of product. Never asked for money. Not good for business, showed his underlying humanitarian side. But now in Florida, he was getting involved in even greater projects to help those in need, in projects without any personal financial gain. Eric had one friend in particular that suffered quite a life-changing injury while motorcycling. This friend of his lost his leg. This is where Eric's inner compassion began to truly come to light. From the day of that event, where his friend lost his leg, Eric was immersed in helping him put his life back together. From arranging an ungodly expensive flight back home from South Dakota, it's expensive flights. Ungodly expensive flight back home to constructing devices to help his friend's mobility, Eric dove in without question. It was from this experience that Eric co-created a nonprofit company to help those with life-changing disabilities from accidents. He did, remember. This endeavor was taken on at the same time he was running his other company that he set out to start in Florida. Never an idle moment for Eric. He always strived to do more, to learn more, and to always be improving himself personally and professionally. As Eric expanded his depth of knowledge on any and all topics, one area of interest he took to was computers. More specifically, designing hardware and building programs. I'll come back to this point in a minute. I actually wrote that down. It's not. As Eric grew his network of great friends, business and personal, and went further into helping others through his businesses, our hours-long conversations each week began to shift a little bit of focus. You see, our conversations generally focus on sharing topics of mutual interest, the finer details of British cars, motorcycles, which is better, my Suzuki mass-produced piece of junk, or his exquisite hand-built Italian masterpiece Ducati, or even what whiskeys we were drinking at the moment. Whatever it was, our conversations were long, and they were very exciting for the both of us. But as he got on, our conversations began to include seemingly endless dissertations about programming algorithms that sounded more like Mandarin to me. Oh boy, could these conversations go on for what seemed like days. Dad, you recall some of those 2-hour-long conversations about programming? The next fork in the road of Eric's journey took him to North Carolina, where he found his expertise in designing and building complex computer systems that landed him at the top of the IT department working for the city of High Point. I don't know if all of you know that. At that point, Eric had been developing actual hardware that he created and software he designed to run his hardware that improved systems benefiting the employees of cities and citizens of the city itself. Benefiting it. From his insatiable appetite for knowledge, coupled with his seemingly endless energy, he didn't sleep. Eric managed to break into an industry so foreign to me and such a deviation from our past business. Now our conversations completely shifted focus. Most cases, it was Eric demonstrating a new and more efficient system he had designed, built, put into place, and trained others to use. I found myself taking notes as if I was going to be tested about it later. These calls are the most stick out your chest and show off your brilliance moment Eric put out there for me. Looking back at those moments, I do cherish the ego in the acknowledgement of his own brilliance. If there's anything that hits me in the stomach harder, it's remembering those conversations. I would give anything for another one. All of this drive for achievement and perfection does come at a cost. I know Eric struggled. I knew it from a young age because we discussed it, as I do too. We shared some similar inner battles. These battles and struggles I experienced have driven me to find answers, to seek help of others, to read and to learn, implement changes. See, Eric was a textbook definition of a type A personality. Highly motivated, competitive, multitasking, generally high-strung. He was also impatient, and he could view the world in a negative light. And to expand on this, Eric was always reaching for perfection. Perfection in everything he touched, everything he worked on, everything that was a product of his effort. There was always something that other people missed. Maybe we didn't notice a subtle detail, the font choice here, the alignment of a panel there, details overlooked by others, accepted by the world, but grinding on Eric. In Eric's work, this characteristic was a motivator for amazing results, flawless design, exceptional writing, and thoughtful products. In Eric's mind, in his ability to enjoy the imperfection of the world in general, this would become a detriment and sometimes severe. The world's not a perfect place. In fact, several of our conversations in both our personal and professional lives are built on this perception of imperfection and the constant struggle to fix it. To find those that could appreciate the perfection he was putting out in the world even. The difference in our trajectories lie partially in giving into the burdensome realization. Where I would find a resistance, just a shrug of the shoulder and an understanding of the limitations of my effect on the world as a whole, Eric would push harder. Sometimes even altering his mood for days at a time. Perfection. I eventually adopted a mantra to help myself from spiraling downwards. Finding perfection in an imperfect world. It's not a game for me. To this day, and oddly enough, before this presentation, this speech, not eulogy, a friend reached out to me about this next exact topic. I recall a conversation I had with who Eric and I considered an extremely intelligent and undoubtedly successful businessman back in the early 2000s. He said to me while I was getting ready to take my plunge into some other business venture opportunity, I didn't order that. It's a good time. Excuse me. This businessman said to me, Adam, it's okay to say no to someone. Be good to yourself and honor your own time. He was addressing my tendency to accept all requests without concern of my own time. Another fork in the road. This is where Eric did not get the same memo. Eric could not say no. In fact, I cannot recall a time when he told me he simply could not help me with something. My father and I both watched Eric take on so many projects in a professional capacity, both personal and professional, throughout our time at our first company. Eric's days were so long that he would even miss out on riding with the fellas at the end of the day, the work week on a Friday. As my father and I grabbed our helmets to jump on our Harleys for a much-needed spin around Hudson Valley, Eric would almost always be sitting at his desk, conveniently located on the way to the front door of the office. He would look up and answer my father's open invitation with his usual, "Don't have time today, guys, go have fun." There might have been a little snark on that too. But that's how Eric was. Right up until his departure, he was taking on tasks with little care for his own time. In retrospect, this was yet another trait underscoring his deep care for others and placing those above himself. Eric was selfless. Deep to his core, his overall sense of being, which would manifest itself present for all to witness. It's a long one. Seats comfortable? I said you got to buckle up for this, okay? I can tell you from spending more than half of my life under the same roof with Eric that he was the most gentle person in my world. This may sound weird to everybody at first because we're twins, but the fact of the matter is Eric had a much bigger heart for sharing emotions. Growing up together and subsequently living and working together put me in a closer orbit, which gave me a perspective and even influenced my maturation from childhood through schooling and throughout my professional life. My own personal drive for perfection was sharpened on Eric and his perception of life. He never gave me a moment, never gave me a break. Typo in an email? Even after we parted ways, both geographically and emotionally, we maintained our twin bond through our comfort and a shared understanding of what we considered life. Another anecdote. Even as I lived in Los Angeles on the other side of the country, Eric and I, and sometimes Dad would join. Kristen, I think you were there a few times. We had this thing we called the 3,000 Mile Bar, and we would turn on our phones with our video, and we would meet on Fridays and have a drink together, and we would talk. And to be honest with you, it felt like we were sitting right next to each other, and that's exactly how I remember Eric and his still being next to me throughout all of this. Anyway. My relationship with Eric grew and changed as most relationships do. Eric developed a much closer relationship to my father and Kristen and Patty and Kate and Carly. Pat. He got much closer to them, and he actually ended up getting a family that we knew we wanted. Lots of sisters, so many sisters. I'm not going to speak directly for any of them, any of my family, but I do know that Eric provided the much-needed humor and big-hearted caring that he provided for me all those years before. He was funny, Kate. There's a joke behind everything. Nick knows what I'm talking about. As I searched through hundreds of questionable resolution images for this ceremony, in preparation for a slideshow and some of the images here, I quickly realized that Eric had an impact on everybody around him in a very similar way. So many beautiful experiences with such caring and loving people. Eric truly experienced a family life, a big family. Dad gave it to him. I was genuinely happy for him. Our stories changed, but our conversation always brought us home. We reveled in the fact that we were outliers to an extent in the world. We just didn't quite get it. seeking out a quick laugh with an obscure reference to a movie nobody even cared enough to recall. We used movie quotes to carry on a conversation. In fact, most of our text messages are still gibberish. Quick anecdote, here it comes. We had a thing called twin speak. And that was kind of the running joke in the family. We knew what each other were going to say. We didn't finish our sentences. This wasn't just something we did at childhood. It happened in our professional careers as well. You don't want to sit at a meeting table with Eric at one end and me at the other with a bunch of employees in the middle not knowing what the hell we're talking about. Our conversations were short. There were a lot of movie quotes. Dad used to actually say when we were little kids, because we were always laughing, he said, "You boys are your own biggest fans." I still think about that. On a night in December of 2008, Eric and I were sitting at our meeting table on the headquarters of our first office down in New York. We were enjoying sugar cookies and scotch. If you haven't tried it, I suggest. We were with a good friend and business partner, Matt. Eric and I were engrossed in a conversation I can still recall parts of verbatim. We're talking about the universe. We're talking about the cosmos and quantum entanglement. We're talking about the general meaning of it all. It was an extremely heavy conversation for a holiday drink, but we were led to that place by something bigger for us. You see, it was at that time we'd been awarded our first patent together. As the reality hit that we were contributors to the biggest institution held in such regard to us, high regard, we were now carrying the titles inventors, and we could not help but to pontificate. And if you know Eric, pontificate he did. Admittedly, the lubrication provided by Scotch contributed to some of our more outlandish statements and claims, but the general topics discussed were profound. Again, they were profound enough to provide a point of reference in searching for a way to make sense of the world we're in now. The vast expanse of the universe is beyond anything we can comprehend as humans. Just take a walk out into the darkness tonight and look up to the sky. Stars, planets, black holes. That black hole wasn't figured out when we were talking about this in 2008. That was a very recent visual. Okay. The cosmos at large. Eric and I knew we were a tiny speck in an even smaller sliver of time. What a wonderful and terrifying thing. It was this very realization that provided a foundation for me and possibly Eric to be able to run without limits, to jump fully ahead with the understanding that this reality here was a training ground of sorts. This is the good stuff. Over the years, I spent quite a bit of time building the framework of my journey with these fundamental concepts earlier discussed with Eric back on that night in 2008. For nearly a decade now, I've been dedicating a portion of my time to studying quantum mechanics, the universe, and trying to tie everything in together to make sense. For me, this works. This concept's helped me understand the big why, the big what, and the big who. I can say with some certainty that Eric was building or had built a similar framework to mine. Although we did not delve into too much direct conversation about spirituality, we did come together on the understanding of the interconnectedness of it all. Energy fields, entanglement, the conscious being. When Eric spoke about these concepts, there was a lightness and hope in his tone, and you could see it in his eyes. As a matter of fact, and I don't know how far this went, Eric called me one day out of the blue while I was sitting with Ola and we were talking about our first son, and he said, "Hey, you'll never believe it. I signed us up to go to Mars." And I said, "What are you talking about?" And he said, get this, man. They're putting together lists when we get there of people to actually colonize, and because we're twins, we have such a good shot. I put our names on a list. Ola didn't think it was funny. Why am I going to such lengths to share all of this with you? Well, it's largely due to these experiences with Eric that has helped me process the circumstances we're now faced with. And I'm going to address the elephant in the room. Please afford me an open mind to work through what I believe to be a reasonable narrative of this poignant event. Everyone knows that we're here today to remember Eric and honor Eric and the decision he made to leave reality early on his own accord. Let's think about that for a minute. His own choice on his own accord is his decision. I use the term poignant as an adjective instead of devastating. And I did this because using this word devastating to describe what has happened in totality completely disregards Eric and his reasonings for only focuses on how we feel they're left behind. Unwinding and analyzing Eric's decision to leave has brought up so many considerations for everybody. I can see it on your faces, hear it in your tones. Christ, I can't even get through a night sitting on the couch with a glass of wine, we're all thinking. But I found I didn't have to search far for what I consider a suitable reason that gives me some semblance of closure while keeping intact all the greatness that Eric was. An explanation that I can use to clear up the gray area and find comfort and even happiness for Eric. I quote, "The soul and the mind are in conflict. The soul of any person is perfect. All flaws and weaknesses that you have acquired are flaws and weaknesses of the mind and not the soul." That's Vadim Zeland. And this is what I believe. The underlying cause lies in a conflict that we all encounter from time to time. It's no fault of our own. This conflict manifests itself in various ways. Depression is a disease. It's a disease of the mind and not the soul. The mind is a part of the physical body, and it needs to be tended to and fixed. It needs to be healed like any other injury or disease. And again, it's not uncommon for people with a type A personality to find some depression. I'm going to skip a 5-minute section on research I did with footnotes to save everybody's lower backs and move on. Anyone close to Eric could feel a struggle with the world. Not with us. Eric struggled with the world. He found himself in a battle that many could not see or understand. This was evident to me from an early age as we both moved along our path from childhood throughout adulthood. So many injustices, so little care for perfection. Eric was born with an immense proclivity for creativity and brilliance, which was both a blessing and a curse. Eric did, however, find comfort in his work. I think Kate made a comment about his work. He did have many diverse hobbies, riding motorcycles, working on his cars, learning languages, reading, continuing his education. He always had a book, computer website open, Wikipedia. But his work remained his priority. I believe he kept so incredibly engaged with work in an effort to prevent himself from becoming idle, which would put the spotlight of focus on his sadness and eventually his depression. An intense work ethic like this did create a detachment from others. Over the years, this detachment became more apparent. This detachment also worked against Eric. Nearly everyone here has talked to me before this eulogy, and everybody out there watching in TV land has made comments to me in one way or another, displaying an extreme remorse for not reaching out enough. Eric didn't want it. He didn't want it. He internalized his anguish to a degree only a few can imagine or understand. It was real, and it was not selective, and it was not personal. Nobody in this room is pointing a finger of blame at anybody else. I haven't heard it. I haven't seen it. We're not sitting here saying, you could have done more. You could have done more, Adam. Nobody's saying that stuff to me. No, you know what we're doing? We're sitting here turning a finger back on ourselves and assigning the blame to ourselves. This is odd behavior, right? We simply can't do this. We can't blame ourselves. Again, the reality is depression is a disease, and it can take you to your deepest, darkest places. And some of us have experienced this. I've experienced this. We have a very supportive family and a giant network of friends. This room is packed. I only see 2 empty chairs, but I'm telling you there's about 120 people watching. This family and our group of friends reaches globally. In the overwhelming amount of care, it was all here for Eric, and he did know it. Not only was Eric willing to sacrifice his free time for the service of others, his final gesture left several benefits for the use of others. I think most of you know Eric was an organ donor, and he helped several people in a final way. Nothing in return, no financial benefit, no praise. You know, I told this story to a good friend of mine back home the week after this happened. And my friend John eloquently said to me, Eric demonstrated altruism in its purest form. Take everything we learned here today and apply it to the path forward in healing. Eric truly cared for others to his core. His business pursuits and the way he spent a lot of his free time were to the benefit of others. He walked gently, treaded lightly, and ensured he was never burdened to any of us. The times he felt as though he may have caused pain, he'd simply turn into himself. No harm to others. That's what he did. Everybody knows it. Eric left our physical reality to move on to his next endeavors, out into the cosmos as he understood it to be. He did so in the most conscious way, and he certainly didn't want to be a burden to any of us. Eric was a gentle man to his very core. I am happy for him and honor his life and give him my best for his next chapter. Now, I will admit, the eulogy was long, but I do want to talk to you for a minute. Dad, I saved it to the end so that I can get the things out of my mouth. Dad, the weight of life can be crushing at times. Life is difficult, it's messy, it can hurt, and it can seem unfair, Dad. But life can be so many other things. It can be enjoyable, it can be exciting, funny, it can be enriching. Without a strong foundation of security, safety, and demonstrated virtues, one can rarely grow to fully enjoy life and live those things. I am only able to stand here today and work through this because of you. You not only taught me how to grow and thrive, but you helped me build my own foundation to grow myself and my family on. You're appreciated and honored as a father. Not only by me and Kristen, Carly and Kate, but also by Eric, which you knew by his actions, spoken and unspoken. We're all here today, Dad. In this place that I found out recently was part of the family. This property was in the family. We're also the place you learned to swim, and you grew up right here on Sheldrake. We're here for you, Dad. We're here to honor your son, Eric, but we're here. Don't forget, we're here to honor you. The father that provided the foundation, lessons and virtues to allow Eric to grow into the great man he was. Thank you for being the best father and chief. Thank all of you for coming, and I just want to thank Marcia, Gary, Rachel, all the family that's local here that I reached out to from Los Angeles to pull all this together. Emotional support on the phone, Nick and Brent, everybody I called. It's been a trip, and we've set up we have some food outside. We have some wine. This is why we're at a winery. Marcia hand-selected only the best. But please, let's take some time to support each other. And thank you again for coming and listening to my very, very long speech about my brother.